Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you all back to the next character in this long-running series of various newcomer ideas for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the Super Smash Bros. Series in general. This time we are on character 128, and as I mentioned in the last video with character 127, Yuden, however you pronounce his name, I never actually played the game, from Dragalia Lost, Nintendo's one of Nintendo's biggest, mobile phone games in the last year or so. I mentioned that I was going to be returning to Namco this time with character 128. I've talked about numerous characters from Namco so far, especially from Tails and from Tekken. I've done like 3 characters each. But I've only done 1 character from this franchise so far, and that's Soul Calibur, and that 1 character being Mitsurugi, and he's X amount of characters back. I have no idea how long it took for me to get to him. But as I mentioned in the last video, character 128 is going to be Nightmare from Soul Calibur. And like always, before this intro gets way too out of hand, way too long, and goes on forever, like a lot of my character videos seem to be doing sometimes for this series. 3 categories. Why does the character make sense for Smash Bros? Moveset ideas, a percentage chance I can actually see him getting in the game. Now, with Nightmare, why does Nightmare deserve to get in Smash Bros? Why does Soul Calibur in general deserve to be in Smash Bros? And I mentioned the same thing on Mitsurugi's video, but I'm going to mention the same thing here as well. First and foremost, Soul Calibur is one of Namco's biggest franchises. It's one of their biggest franchises that's not named Tekken, that's not named the Tails franchise, and it's not their classic era of like Dig Dug, Galaga, Pac-Man, and stuff like that. It's one of their biggest franchises, and from one of their fighting games, it's pretty much their 2 biggest fighting game franchises, Tekken and Soul Calibur. And it's pretty much one of the most popular, iconic fighting game franchises of all time. I mean, it's not as iconic as, say, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, which started in the late 80s and into early 90s when the fighting game craze was really getting going. But the 90s itself was a big era for fighting games. It came around the middle-ish and near end of... I'm trying to remember exactly when Soul Calibur came out, but it came near like the middle to end of the 90s during the big, fighting game craze. It was one of the earliest 3D fighting games alongside, Virtual Fighter and Tekken. So, yeah, it is a big major franchise in the gaming industry. It's iconic to the gaming, to the fighting game craze, to the fighting game, genre. And we already have the like Smash Bros. Is a technically a fighting game, a party fighting game that idolizes the history of characters throughout the gaming industry and includes Ryu in there, who's one of the biggest fighting game characters of all time. So Soul Calibur fits right in there with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Virtual Fighter and King of Fighters and Fatal Fury and all that stuff. It is a big fighting game franchise and one of Namco's biggest fighting game series. Namco, who has a really good relationship with Nintendo, and probably is one of the third parties out there that has the biggest relationship with Nintendo now that's not named Sega or Capcom. So, and they did help with Smash Bros. 4, and I think they might have had some hand in helping with Smash Bros. Ultimate, so Namco's on good relationships with Nintendo. Soul Calibur is an iconic fighting game franchise, which has had an appearance on Nintendo. Soul Calibur 2 was was the biggest version on the GameCube, was the biggest version with Link in it. It was the most popular, most bought version of Soul Calibur 2 was Nintendo's version on the GameCube. Now, Nintendo hasn't really gotten a Soul Calibur game since then, except for Legends on the Wii, which was a spin-off. But that was a big inclusion back then. And there are rumors that Namco is considering bringing Soul Calibur 6 to the Nintendo Switch. That could possibly happen in 2019 or 2020. So with those close connections that Namco and Nintendo have, the series having history on Nintendo, possibly getting a new game on Nintendo because the newest game might possibly be ported over to the Switch, and its history in the fighting game industry, Soul Calibur deserves a character in Smash Bros. As well. And Namco needs someone to join, Pac-Man. Like, they're like the one company in Smash Bros. That does not have multiple characters. We have 3 Capcom characters in Mega Man, Ryu, and Ken. Technically Sega now has 3 technically because Joker and Bayonetta count technically as Sega characters alongside Sonic. And then there's Snake, Richter, Belmont, and Simon Belmont for Konami. One of the few remaining things, besides obviously Square Enix, who only has Cloud, that of a third party in company in Smash Bros. That does not have more than 1 character, is Namco. All they have is Pac-Man so far. So at this point, Tails, Tekken, or Soul Calibur, any of them really deserve to get in at some point. And why, Nightmare specifically? He's one of the most major, iconic, popular characters from the history of the Soul Calibur series. He's been in every game since, Soul Edge, since the early days, Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast, Soul Edge on the PlayStation 1, the arcade origins of this series, when he was Siegfried, and then Nightmare, and then they include both versions of this character. This character has been in every single Soul Calibur, just like Mitsurugi, I believe, has. I think Mitsurugi's been in every single game, too. And I mentioned that in his video. So, why not, if Soul Calibur is to be represented in Smash Bros., represent it with a character that actually, is iconic to the series since its debut. So, in and of itself, that's why Soul Calibur deserves it. That's why Nightmare should really be the choice, if not Mitsurugi. He's one of the major, most iconic characters. He's technically the good guy, bad guy dynamic, one of the major villains in the series, also technically one of the original major heroes with Siegfried, so on and so forth, yada yada yada, inclusion in Smash Bros. Moveset ideas. Now, just like multiple fighting game characters I mentioned before, Mitsurugi, Terry Bogard, Chun-Li, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Rock Howard, all the different fighting game characters I mentioned throughout this entire series, just like how they did with Ryu in the actual Smash Bros., I basically pulled their moves from their fighting game and plopped it into a Smash Bros. Moveset. So if you have played a Soul Calibur game and have played and know the moveset of Nightmare, you will know exactly how I'm picturing him in the game. I'm giving him the moves, and it'll probably be just like Ryu. If you do the button motions, it would do more damage or whatever. You can do it either just by pressing normal Smash Bros. Moves or doing them in the order, like down, corner, circle, forward, button, fire, punch button for Hadouken and whatnot. You'll do the same thing for him. You can do the same thing for him as well as playing simplified smash buttons. There you go. But his moveset, he is a powerhouse. He is a heavy character. I wouldn't say he's Bowser or Ganondorf heavy, but he is a heavy character and he's heavy damage hitter, which is his cheapness in the Soul Calibur franchise, which you kind of have to combat a little bit. He's faster in the actual series, in actual Soul Calibur, but that's Soul Calibur. Smash Bros. Has to find a way to balance him out so he doesn't get too cheap. He's not super fast in Soul Calibur, but he's faster than what I'm picturing him in Smash Bros. Just slow him down. I said the same thing with Doom Guy, because I got a comment on that I've actually played Doom, I just haven't played the newest Dooms and whatnot. It's been a long time since I played 64 and whatnot either, but Doom Guy is technically fast, but I balanced him out by making him, in his series, but I balanced him out by making him slower in Smash Bros. Because he's more of a powerhouse character. I'm going to slow down Nightmare a little bit, so he is not super cheap running around comboing people and doing like 20, 40, 50% damage with every strike. He's powerhouse, but he's not a heavy hitter. He won't deal that much damage, but you can't just run around the stage and blast people with your sword millions of times, so he's slightly heavier, but he's not Bowser heavy. His smash attacks are going to be a bunch of standard, normal sword swings. A lot of like the heavy attacks, the quick tempo buster, the mail crusher, the shadow slicer, like those attacks, like the more basic sword swings he has in the game, those are his smash attacks with his sword, which is called the, for those, that's the Soul Edge. He swings it around. Swing, swing, swing. A powerhouse. Maybe some of them have build up, so it's like, you can't just like, let's be like this. Like some of them will be quick, like jabs and stuff like that, but maybe so it's not super like OP. Slow down the sword a bit, so it's like a little build up to him swinging it, so it's not like immediately like super fast. Like some of them will be fast, but some of the more powerful attacks, probably even special attacks, would be more slow. So it's not like you're running around dealing 50% damage all over the freaking place. So yeah, the smash attacks will be a bunch of the standard sword swings, sword swipes of the Soul Edge, like I said, quick tempo buster or the mail crusher, like very smaller, quicker, more simple attacks. The special attacks are where it's going to be the hard-hitting Soul Edge attack, like the more powerhouse stuff, the more dark, energetic, evil, demonic, nightmare-esque attacks that, he's known and iconic for since the beginning of the series and some of the different attacks he's made throughout it. Those including the Death Lord's Vengeance. I have a list right here. Like I said, I don't know these moves by name. I know them by actually playing the series. Death Rage, the Dark Recorsa, Flapjack, Slash Cross, Brutal Cross, Death Grounder, Jade Slicer, Fatal Spin Slash. So all the more powerful Death, Dark, Evil, Soul Edge, taking over Siegfried attacks are all going to be in his special attacks. On top of the Shoulder Rush, so like I mentioned with the freaking Doom Guy, Doomslayer, he will shoulder rush your freaking face to the ground, knocking you down. And then he also has what is considered the double Death Claw, the claw attack. So he You can obviously tell he has a giant freaking claw hand, so he can grab you with it, and he can throw you to the ground. He can throw you up in the air. He can just toss you all over the place and grab. He can grab you, so that would probably be his grab attack, so he can grab you with it. But he'll probably have some special attacks that actually grab you and slam you to the ground, or throw you up in the air, or throw you across the stage, or something. Because he has a freaking giant demonic claw hand, you kind of have to include that, not just to make it about the Soul Edge. And he can shoulder tackle you to the ground. That will be his special attacks. His final smash, I took his critical edge, his super from Soul Calibur 6, which I don't know the actual name of it, but he basically, this is what's going to happen. He will probably, I don't know if it should be a cutscene based one, or if it should just be, like, he just does it on the stage and hits you, but I'd say a cutscene based one would make it more cinematic and cool, like how is the Soul Calibur, the specials, the critical arts, the critical edges in Soul Calibur 6 really are very cinematic. So he'll get the smash ball, he'll break it, and when he does it, he'll rush forward with his giant claw hand, grab anyone that's within like maybe a 5 to 8 foot distance of him. So you have to really be getting out of the way if he has his final smash. He gets the smash ball or builds up his meter, and then you get thrown into a battlefield where he basically summons the power of the Soul Edge. That the power is like, Soul Edge, give me the power! Dark energy engulfs him. And he rides a dark horse and just rushes forward with a powerful sword swipe that just slashes all the people he catches in his final smash, sends them flying off the stage. So, evil dark horse, he rides with his dark power of the Soul Edge, and dark demonic sword swipes the group that he gets and blasts them off the stage. And everyone's just flying off the stage. There you go. If you have high percent damage, obviously you're going to get KO'd. And before I even get to percentage chance here, I have to mention this. He has to have a Siegfried costume. So 2 of his costumes have to be some sort of Siegfried costume. Like, it has to be an Elf Almar situation. He's called Siegfried. The voice needs to be changed. So I would say probably the same voice actor, not demonically alter where it's like, your nightmare. Like, change his voice so it's like I think it's the same voice actor in Soul Calibur anyways. So just give the normal voice actor for Siegfried's costume and the Nightmare for everything else, for all the Nightmare costumes. So there you go. So you get both Siegfried and Nightmare, and then you could probably change the visual aid on the final smash, where he just summons the light energy of the Soul Calibur Edge power, and he rides a normal light-looking horse. There you go. So it's the same final smash, just it looks different visually with that costume. Percentage chance I can see him getting in. It's good, but not great. I do think Soul Calibur stands a chance to possibly be part of the DLC, part of the Fighter Pass, but it's not the greatest. And if Namco is to get a secondary rep, technically I think both Tails and Tekken make more sense to get that next Namco character than Soul Calibur, sadly, given that Tails has been around since the Super Famicom, and Tekken did come before Soul Calibur, and Tekken is technically Namco's biggest fighting game. Soul Calibur is number 2 to that. And Tails is a huge, iconic RPG franchise from them that has loads of Nintendo, of games on Nintendo, as well as Tekken, which has appeared more on Nintendo than Soul Calibur has. So I'm going to give him a 50% chance, which I think is about the same I get to Mitsurugi. I forgot if I gave Mitsurugi a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but it's in the same range as Mitsurugi. But I'd say 50% chance it's possible. But if Namco is to get a secondary character in the DLC in this Fighter Pass, it's going to be either a Tails character like Lloyd, Crest, or Yuri, or someone from Tekken like Jin, Kazuya, or Heihachi. So those are more likely. Like Soul Calibur characters like Nightmare and Mitsurugi are kind of almost playing second fiddle to them at this point. Now, a future Smash Bros. Game like Smash Bros. 6, 7, 8, yeah, sure, we might possibly have a game by then, because by that point, especially, we probably will have seen Soul Calibur 6 on the Switch, and then when Soul Calibur 7, 8, 9 come out, maybe on the Switch or Nintendo's successor, maybe the series will start jumping back more to Nintendo, because it looks like third parties are slowly but surely jumping back on the Nintendo train, so some of these big third party games will probably start coming out on the Switch's during the Switch's lifespan, going into their 10th gen system. So who knows really about that. But for now, for the Fighter Pass DLC, the remaining 4 after Joker, I'm giving it a 50% chance. Not the biggest, but not the lowest, in the middle, and I think that's just right for Soul Calibur at this point. That's it for Nightmare. Put in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys want to see a Soul Calibur character in there? And would you want to see Nightmare, or would you pick someone else like Ivy or Cervantes or Mitsurugi or someone? Put in the comments below about my moveset. Does my moveset make sense? What would you change about the moveset? Does the reasons I said he deserves it to get in or so calibrated to get in make sense? Put in the comment section down there below. Discuss it down there. It's 50%. Too high, too low. Discuss it down there. Have fun. Let's get it done. That's it for Nightmare 128. And when I return for 129 on the road to 150, we are going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about a character a ton of people have been wanting in Smash Bros. For a long freaking time. And Microsoft has given the okay on it if Nintendo and Sakurai wanted to go for it. I'm going to be talking about Banjo and Kazooie next time on this series. See y'all later.